So for the most part, I know if I were to say that Dragon Ball Super has been the Goku and Vegeta show, I don't think a lot of persons would actually disagree with me at the end of the day, if I'm being serious. So welcome everyone, Xander Uchiha here. Welcome back to the channel. Of course, today we're having a Dragon Ball Super discussion, or probably a overall Dragon Ball franchise discussion. But granted, given that we're at the Dragon Ball Super segment of the franchise, it pretty much is a Dragon Ball Super discussion. But anyway, welcome everyone, welcome back, and I am your only host, Sanjay Uchiha. So anyway, the Goku and Vegeta show needs to stop, honestly. Now, as of Dragon Ball Super Manga Chapter 60, Vegeta has arrived on the battlefield to combat Moro. But looking into the future of this series, personally, after this arc with Moro, I'm having issues seeing where the story is going to go. Especially if we continue to, do arcs that are highly dependent on Goku and Vegeta. And it's not like the story or the franchise doesn't have a million and one elements that they could write arcs and stories around for the foreseeable future, which I feel if they make use of these elements the next 5 to 10 years for Dragon Ball, it could be set in stone. Of course, Toriyama isn't going to be around, but given that things are being given that Dragon Ball in itself has become a lot more corporate than when it was in its humble beginnings, the early stages of, when it started to be published in Shonen Jump, and it was just me and Akira Toriyama and his editors, and you just pass things off to the animation studio Toei, and they do the animation. Right now, Dragon Ball has become a lot more corporate. I mean, you have a Dragon Ball room for crying out loud, where persons are basically crafting and writing up Dragon Ball stories. Now, when it comes down to the main quote-unquote canon of the series, after this arc with Moro, I really and truly think we need to move away from the Goku and Vegeta show. There are a lot of elements at play that I think can be made use of. Within Universe 7 itself, we know we have a strong contender to write arcs and stories around being Broly. He had a very successful movie, very successful reboot of his character, and I feel like it was a good move to not necessarily include him in this arc. He's only been mentioned by name, more or less, or just referenced within the Moro arc, but he hasn't been utilized, and I think that's good. I think that's a sign that they're saving him for something. One other element I think they really need to focus on going beyond this arc is, wrapping up the 10-year time skip. I think how should I even phrase it? This renaissance of Dragon Ball has played out its purpose of, hooking in or bringing in a new generation of viewers. And now we're at a point where the new generation and the old generation of viewers are there's a middle ground now between the old content and the new content, that was started with, Dragon Ball Kai and Dragon Ball Super and everything. I think there's a nice middle ground between the fans right now, and if you were to start something new beyond the 10-year time skip, then everybody more than likely is going to be on board. So with that, I think one thing we need is moving past the time skip. And moving past the time skip comes with focusing on the new generation, not primarily, but starting to utilize them and everything that they can potentially bring to the table. Now, it is something I have talked about here on the channel before regarding focusing on the new generation and not necessarily making it the Goku show or the Vegeta show or the Goku and Vegeta show, but there is a lot of characters that can be focused on within the new generation. I mean, we have Oob, we have Pan, we have Bra or Bulla, we have Goten and Trunks. After the 10-year time skip, they're still gonna be like young adults or teenagers for the most part, depending on where after the 10-year time skip they want to start. So that's 5 characters for the new generation that they could basically focus on, and then have Gohan at the helm. Granted, I'm still not saying that I should put Gohan as a main character, and potentially maybe could do a spin-off series, who knows. But at the same time, it's all about balancing those 5 characters between Goku and Vegeta. Now, I know one of the things they really need to balance out going forward is the power scaling, or how do you write it so that these five characters within the scope of where the power system is in story now, and where other characters such as Goku and Vegeta have reached power wise, how do you balance things between potentially focusing on the new generation and the old generation, who still, no matter how you slice and dice it based on how Dragon Ball is set up, they will still be the primary focus of the series. Now, of course, in the past, plot devices are, certain, dimensions are writing. Certain things have been put in place within story before for characters to catch up, whether it's the ridiculous potential of Gohan, and combining that with the fact that we have a room that you can literally spend a year in, and outside in the regular dimension, only a day would pass. Things like that have always been put in place for characters to believably catch up to the level of power that other characters are at within the story. But I think taking the time to write, I'm not there's not well, stuttering here. What I'm basically trying to say is that I don't currently have an idea of how to balance things between those five characters and Goku and Vegeta and make it believable. Of course, one way to potentially do it would be to make use of the fact that we still have 12 universes at the end of the day. We still have 12 universes, and it would be simple to have Goku and Vegeta go on adventures within other universes, while at the same time having these five characters take up a presence within Universe 7 and eventually let them universe hop as well. Of course, having the dynamic between these five characters, one of which is Oob, who has connections to Majin Buu, to say the least, who has connections to the Grand Supreme Kai, which is in the God hierarchy. That could be a way to write stories and dynamics and relationships between persons who, definitely are considered as mortals, or at least mortals among mortals. And seeing how our possible relationship, how the dynamic of that relationship can be developed between them and Oob, and tie it back into the God hierarchy, and just the presence and purpose of the God hierarchy at the same time, and kind of write it as a kind of organic, kind of like a natural flowing arc that basically tie into one another essentially, and just give a lot of the characters a lot of utility. Every character has purpose, every character has screen time, and I think with all things considered, exploiting all of those elements of Dragon Ball, the 12 universes, the new generation characters. I know it's just two main things, but there are a lot of things that are under those elements that can be used and written. I think we'll have a much better Dragon Ball. And at the same time, if time is allotted to actually pin out and map out all of these things, I think we can have a much better Dragon Ball, but not at the cost of its what makes Dragon Ball, because at the end of the day, it's still it was a gag manga, but it's still a comedy based fighting series essentially. So it still needs to have that charm at the end of the day, is what I'm saying. And there is a possibility, if we get too deep into the writing, it could transform Dragon Ball into something that it's not. But at the same time, I feel like there can be balance there. Dragon Ball can still remain what it is. It can still contain contain that charm, that comedy, that innocence, but with deep, probably unintentionally deep character writing once you strip away the superficial layers. But it can still go further beyond that and become a more deeply written story and maintain the charm of what makes Dragon Ball is what I'm saying essentially. So yeah. So at the end of the day, I just think there are too many elements, or the scope of the elements involved in Dragon Ball at this point. There are too many things there for it to remain the Goku and Vegeta show, and for them to be the two characters that necessarily carry the show at the same time. I mean, granted, even within Universe 7, within the anime at least, the Namekian Book of Legends is something, who knows, it hasn't been explored at all. I mean, for all we know, they can make up anything in terms of the contents of that book and even bring Piccolo back into the fold. So, yeah, anything is possible. And I think at the end of the day, even if it continues to be the Goku and Vegeta show, all I'll say is that anything can happen with Dragon Ball, and that still probably in itself can drive the future of the series going forward. But it would suck if we don't really get any, if we don't make use of the opportunities that are there with the elements at play. But anyway, this has been my little ramble where Dragon Ball is concerned in terms of the future of the franchise. And yeah, be sure to rate, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you thought about the video. Of course, we are on our way to 1,000 subs, so yeah, we'd appreciate the support. Hopefully we can hit the mark before the end of the year. But anyway, hope you guys are having a great day, or whenever you guys are listening to this, and I'll see you guys in the next one.